Hey guys, how's it going? Jam here, and welcome to my highlights from round 1 of the V8 Juniors. I'm starting in race 1 in 6th position, which is of course where I qualified. Not gonna lie, I was a little bit disappointed. I was hoping to be perhaps slightly higher up, but it's certainly not the end of the world. I had a fairly decent start, drawing sort of level with Mugen up in 5th, but the Ford behind me, Tim and Ninetales, with a fantastic start. They're really putting the pressure on us. There's a little bit of a kerfuffle in front of me, which forced me wide through turn 1, and L-Gamer unfortunately got a tap from, I think it was Rabbit up there, which knocked him into my path, and he hit the brakes to try and avoid getting onto the grass, but that only meant that I gave him an extra nudge as well, so a big apologies for that, but just little bumps like that often do happen. A bit more carnage around the next few corners, and it leaves me in this rather precarious 3-wide position that's not exactly the place you want to be in. Hordes rather sensibly backs out on my right, but I'm not going to be quite so sensible. Pig-eared and stubborn. I am. So yeah, I was holding it around the outside of Ninetales, and somehow that worked. Hordes managed to get him on the cutback as well, and then Hordes gets me as he goes for a big dive into this right-hander. I managed to hold him off initially, but he's put me on a rather terrible line for the next corner, and he manages to set me up for a nice little cutback. I think about trying to stick my nose in through the big long right-hander up the hill, but it's never really going to work there. I'm actually so compromised that I hold up Ninetales a little bit behind me. Still not a bad start though, as half a lap in I have gained a position at least. So we move now on to near the end of lap 3. Not much happened after that. I've pulled quite a bit of a gap to the car behind me, but I couldn't quite keep up with the pace of Hordes in front. And he's making more moves as he dives up the inside of Invisibleak into the final corner. That's not the best place to be battling though, as a nice clean run for me enables me to outdrag both of them as we go down the start-finish line. I clear Invisibleak rather quickly, and I just about managed to clear Hordes in time to move over into the defensive line by the time we go into turn 1. I think Hordes has a look at trying to hold it round the outside there, but there's a couple of long corners on this track that you're not really going to be able to hold it around the outside of. Another lap later though, and I am up into 3rd place, and I'm chasing down the 2 leaders, the 2 teammates of the Dabba-Dee Dabba-Die Ford racing team. And yeah, they've had it pretty easy so far in this race by the looks of things, just up there fighting amongst themselves. But in the last lap or so, I have managed to make a dent into their lead. And look at that, right on cue, there's Hordes. I've managed to drag him along with me. Hordes was certainly putting me under a lot of pressure of his own. He's really pushing me along, helping me to catch the 2 cars in front. It was also rather helpful that they were actually starting to fight amongst themselves, looking like your Defty there, getting a bit of a cutback out of that chicane that we've just gone through, and managing to outdrag his teammate as they go towards the hairpin, dropping Rabbit back into 2nd, and not only losing position, but rather quite a lot of time to myself, and of course Hordes is just behind me also, so really not a brilliant few corners for him, and then coming through the quick chicane. Apparently I can take a lot more speed than the Ford through there as I draw alongside. Couldn't quite get to the inside because of the way that the sort of corner works, and he defended quite well to the inside. But I have a look going around the outside of the long right hand corner. But as I mentioned earlier already, there's a few long corners here that you really don't want to be on the outside of, as a Rabbit manages to pull back in front by the time we exit the corner. Perhaps the outside line did help me a little bit with my exit, but I was certainly still surprised to be out-dragging the Ford at this point. Through a lot of testing, we did discover that the Ford tends to have an edge up the top end of the longer straights, and Hordes there going for a big dive that he couldn't get stopped, but fortunately I could hold on to the position as we enter the next corner. Jumping onto, I think it's later that lap now, still on lap 6, and I make a little bit of a mistake around this long right-hand corner. It's somewhere that I really was rather struggling with, and as you can see there, running wide through both parts of it and deciding to go defensive into the next right-hander into chicane, and Hordes there showing his nose. He has also got past Rabbit now, as well as myself. And I had initially pulled a little bit of a gap while he was getting past Rabbit, but yeah, that mistake completely eroded it, and there he is going for another move. But, as I've mentioned twice now already, you really do not want to be on the outside of some of the longer corners around here, because you're just not going to make it work, and Hordes didn't that time either. We're going to go now on to the last lap of the race, and we're going to stay on board because A, it's the last lap, B, not a huge amount has happened else in this race, and C, this actually turned out to be my fastest lap. So I'll try and talk you through how I managed to put together a decent lap up this circuit. Through turn 1, you want to stay nice and tight so you can get a straight run into this next corner. You want to clip the apex nicely, not on the curb but not on the red stuff, and the same thing through the right-hander, clip the curb but not on the green stuff. Try to avoid the curb on the exit because you'll only bump you around a little bit, and then it's just a case of putting the power down. And I actually stay to the middle of the track there just because I've got hordes behind me. I'm going a little bit defensive. I hit the first apex nicely, but I actually get the next corner wrong, hitting the grass bank on the inside, which pushes me out wide to the next part. But fortunately, it wasn't too much of an issue as hordes was still behind me. Through this section, I was sometimes dropping it into third gear, but on this last lap, I found that staying in fourth was much better. Again, you want to clip the apexes on the curb, but not on the bit inside the curb. Through the long right-hander up the hill, I decided to go for a little bit of a later turn in, so I could go a bit slower in and a little bit faster out. And I tried the same tactic at the top of the hill. Both times, it helped me out getting a good exit and a good drive to the next part of the corner. Also helped me keep hordes behind as well, because it stopped him getting a good run. Same thing through another very similar chicane. Run the curb, but not the bit inside the curb. On the exit, I was a little bit wide, but that curb isn't quite as harsh. And you can see I'm 3.5 tenths up on my best lap at this point in the race. Through the long right-hand hairpin now, you just got to try and stay as close as you can to that inside. And I didn't, again, not perfect there. I was about a car's width away, and had a little bit of slide on the exit there as well. That final chicane there, very, very fast, nearly flat out. Take as much curb as you dare to try and straighten the car up. And then it's just braking as late as you can, but not that late, into the final corner. Again, I was just trying to hold the inside line as much as I could in order to keep hordes behind me. And then you just got to put the power down. Try not to run the curb too much there. And then it's just a simple case of keeping it pinned all the way down the straight until you cross the start-finish line. And that would be it for this race. The very last lap on the lap counter was just a cooldown lap as a function we need to get around the dodgy replays that Forza currently has, where it cuts off immediately. Anyway, on to the start of race 2, and as you can see, we've got a manual rolling start, keeping it at 60 miles an hour until we cross the start-finish line, and then just absolutely pinning the throttle and trying to get the best start possible. I didn't do too well there. I wasn't really right on Udefty's bumper, and allowed him to get a little bit of a gap, but I do still have hordes behind me. I haven't allowed him any time to really put me under too much pressure, but that gap that Udefty initially pulled has gone almost immediately into the second corner. The left-hander, his line was very bad. Almost had a look at going around the outside, and then almost another look at around the outside through turn 3 as well. He gets a little bit skittish on the exit, and I managed to keep more composed on the curb, and staying on it a little bit longer allows me to get to the left-hand side of the track, up the inside for the left-hand part of this next chicane. Doesn't really work, but I'm still on the outside as we exit, using a lot of the exit curb once again, and I'm still there as we go towards the next section of corners, braking too late though, unfortunately, and running ever so slightly off track and not managing to even keep my position alongside. And in fact, it's given hordes a fantastic run on the pair of us. Udefty going very slowly into the next section, holding me up as well, and allowing hordes to get past the pair of us. A great move around the outside there. Udefty runs slightly wide at the top of the hill, and I a bit slow trying to cut back to the inside. Chris gives me a bump from behind, and that actually gives me helps me get a bit of momentum so I can outbrake Udefty into the next part of the corner. I'm still very close on my bumper though as we go through the next chicane, as I didn't get it stopped brilliantly, but I did do it well enough to gain the position. Chris is trying to get on the action again as we go around the long right-hand hairpin, but how many times have I said it already this video, you just don't want to be on the outside through some of these really long corners. And then it's just once again being as brave as you can around the very fast chicane that I'm sure has certainly claimed a victim or two if people trying to take it flat out. And that is into the final corner of this first lap. I think the two cars behind me, Invisibleak and Udefty, and it also looks like Timid Ninetales is actually getting on the action for that battle for third, has already given me quite a gap, so it's just a case of me trying to get the power down to see if I can put in the lap time to try and catch hordes. So not a huge amount of action going on at the moment. I did put in a nice good lap, a 2 minute 4.0, 2 minute 4.3 followed, and these were some of the best laps I could possibly muster. Back into the 204.0s, not quite into the 203 as I'm getting tantalisingly close. But unfortunately, even though these were some of, as I say, the best laps I've done around this track, I simply did not have the pace to catch hordes. A bit of a duff lap there, dropping into the 204.9s. So when hordes came into the pits on lap 8, I just wasn't close enough. There's no way that I'm going to be able to get past him unless he makes a mistake or something. As I come into the pits on the next lap, I have tried to get a bit of an overcut. My only hope really at this immediate point was that Hordes had come out in traffic and was getting held up. Obviously this isn't the actual speed that you go through the pit lane at. I've sped that up massively just because it would be long and boring otherwise. But there we go, as I regain control, Hordes is already flying past. There's no one else particularly close, so it's just once again back to trying to pump in the lap times and kind of hope that Hordes makes a mistake. In this section of the race, after the pit stop, my pace did drop off a little bit though, as my morale was slightly down seeing how far Hordes was ahead. My first lap wasn't too bad, a 204.4, then dropping into the 205s for the first time, and then dropping even further into the 205s, just dropping that pace, because I had, not, as you can see by the feet meter, I've got 1,000 feet either side of me at this point. It's just really not that exciting, and as I crossed the line on the last lap, I didn't even keep it pinned, just had a quick pause to check at the results as I finished. So these are the results of round 1. I actually ended up being the joint highest scorer alongside Hordes, as he got a 2-point penalty for a pit lane infringement. So yeah, it's very close at the top between us. We got a little bit of a gap back, but I mean, this is only the first round of the season. It is by no means over yet. And of course, being the first round of the season, the driver standings are the same as what you've just seen, but it is the team standings where it's a little bit more interesting. The two Ford drivers of Rabbit and Yudefti, who started race 1 so brilliantly well, did drop off a little bit through the rest of the round, but they are still leading the team standing. So that is it for this round. Thank you very much for watching, and until the next one, goodbye.